Hi, I'm Samantha Swick, Chief Marketing Officer of the Americas for Inspera, and welcome to Expertise. In this podcast series, we will be speaking with industry experts who will share their knowledge on the assessment challenges institutions and students are facing, with the thought leaders who are passionate about the digital learning evolution that is occurring, and with Inspera leadership, who are at the forefront of creating digital exam experiences that are shaping the learning environment, with each digital exam authored, delivered, monitored, and graded. So join us as we explore how to modernize the digital exam experience with Expertise. Hello and welcome to the second episode in our plagiarism conversation with Besart Kunushevci. Besart is a similarity and originality solution expert with more than 10 years of experience in developing plagiarism technology that has helped faculty and institutions uphold academic standards around the globe. He joined Inspera in June of 2023, bringing his talent and technology solutions, which enables Inspera to assist institutions all over the world with originality and plagiarism efforts. Hi, Besart. How are you today?
Hi, Samantha. I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining our conversation today. What we really want to focus on in our time today is the product from Inspera called Inspera Originality, which is the technology solution that you developed and what it can offer academics unlike others in the marketplace. What I'd like to start with today is what are the benefits of using Inspera's plagiarism detection tool, which is Inspera Originality, for educators and institutions?
Oh, for Inspera Originality is very simple. It's the best in the world. No, I'm kidding. The whole idea behind Inspera Originality is actually equipping educators with a tool that informs their decision regarding academic integrity. So we try to help them to the best of our abilities to uphold academic integrity to the highest standards out there in the world. And how we do that is basically offering not just the core engine to kind of do the similarity checking or AI probability matching or stuff like that, but actually even the kind of solutions that go hand in hand with those detection solutions. And what I mean by that is how we treat data, how we inform educators in terms of kind of academic integrity on the institutional level, how we present our findings, and most importantly, like how we present those findings from a user experience. So these are the four key kind of factors that we look into kind of improving our solution. Secondly is how we provide the analytics. And the analytics have different layers of kind of insights. So the first layer is how we present similarities in a report. And as I even mentioned in the last episode, there are three main classifications that we provide on an originality report. The first one is the exact match, which means the text is highly similar to something that we found over the internet or the databases that we look upon. The second one is the possibly altered text or bad paraphrasing, which means most of the words are the same. There has been some attempts to kind of change them, but actually the meaning stays the same and the kind of structure of the sentence stays the same. And the third one, which I like the most, is the in-text citation, which basically means no matter what kind of similarity we find, if we see something that was cited, it has an in-text citation, it has a reference that is referring to, then we classify that part as being cited. And in this way, the educators have much a richer way of understanding what happens within the document. Now, if we look at the analytic, it goes really deep, like from the first kind of a layer, which is, the similarity report or originality report, up to an institutional kind of analytics, which means that we generate analytics and patterns for an assignment, for a course, for a department, and for the whole institution. And then we can even go deeper to evaluate these findings on a specific educator, from a specific student, so we can better understand where are the gaps or there are the challenges in the process of, ensuring originality within the institution. Then is also the experience that the educators have within the report, which is very important to kind of ensure that our originality reports are also a learning point for both the educator and the student, where these similarities are a perfect example for an educator to teach a student what consists plagiarism and what doesn't. So there are ways that you can exclude sources, there are ways you can exclude sentences, and you can provide argumentation why that was excluded. And in this way, the student can better understand what is going on with the writing. They can understand how they can improve, and they can understand many of the topics related to academic integrity.
That was a lot. It sounds like the tool, the Inspera Originality tool, is super flexible, provides a lot of data, not only for on the student level, but further up. So you could look at coursework, you could a specific class, you could look at a specific course over multiple classes, you could look at the department level, you could look at the institution level. So really great stuff there. You did mention a few various forms of plagiarism, which was paraphrasing and citations and just content that is not a student's original work. Can you tell us a little bit about whether or not the plagiarism detection software tool that Inspera offers accurately identifies those formats, and add maybe a little bit of insight into translations and direct copying, because those weren't two that you mentioned, but they play in that whole sphere of opportunity for plagiarism.
Yeah, thank you for that. So basically with Inspera Originality, what we are building is what the market was needing and not having, which basically is this evolution of, how we cheat, if I may say, how we plagiarize, how we copy things over the internet, where we have these vast amounts of data. You rightfully mentioned some of them. So for us, it was like the direct matching or the direct copy, like copy pasting. It was a standard in the industry. Like most of the tools out there were actually doing a good job in direct copying. But then as this industry evolved, students became more, tech savvy, working with different tools, working with different technologies. We saw that definitely that's not enough. Like finding just a direct copy or a copy paste case, it's not enough. It's like they use a lot of software that does paraphrasing attacks or does synonym attacks, as we call it in technical terminology, which means, changing the text to a point that those similarity detection tools will not be able to do that. And we were going right against these, huge problems. And then along the way, we understood that across the world, there are many, many spoken languages, and we understood that actually a student today speaks, if it's outside of US, for sure it's going to speak two languages. They speak their own native language, and then they speak English, which means it's very easy for them to go, when they're building, let's say, the economic development case study X country, and they would go and just copy everything from their native language, translate that into English, and then present that as original work. And that was not being caught. So students had a free pass doing that. And then we said, no, this is definitely not a good thing to do. And we went against, building a very robust and multilingual translation tool, which means you can combine any language that we support in offering similarity checking. So just for example, somebody is writing in English, but they have copied from Spanish and they have translated from Spanish content completely a whole paper. That will not be caught using the existing solutions in the market. But in Inspera Originality, that is very doable, and it does with high accuracy. And now if I go just a bit deeper on the accuracy, for us it's very important to get evaluated by third parties, to put our tool out there so everyone can use it and can see, the power that we have in Inspera Originality. And we have been evaluated by different organizations, different research teams, and we have seen that actually what we are saying in terms of translation matching is actually true, because none of the existing vendors is doing something reliably to detect that. Or even if they're using English as a translation language as well. So if somebody would write in Spanish, they would look if they possibly copied from English, which for many people, it might sound logical because there is more content in English than in Spanish, but actually the most translation plagiarism cases come from another language into English and not other way around. And that's how we kind of focused in that. So in terms of what we support, where we focus is staying constantly on the frontier of technological advancements, of these new ways of passing documents as not being detected by these tools, and we try to evolve our tool constantly in order to detect such academic misconduct.
Excellent. So with all that flexibility that you've described since our conversation started, can Inspera Originality be tailored to specific institutional policies and guidelines regarding plagiarism?
100%. Like we never believed that one size fits all. Like all of the institutions across the world have different goals, have different policies, have different regulations that they need to adhere to. So our main goal is to kind of understanding the institutional needs and then providing a solution for them. So an institution, let's say in US, can run our software with completely different thresholds, with completely different, let's say, logic behind similarity checking from another, let's say, university in UK. So you can calibrate our algorithms based on the need that that the institution has in a specific term. They can say, don't report me anything you find as a text citation, or don't report me anything you don't find that's an exact match, or all of these things, which are very important for institutions to actually calibrate in the way that they want.
Does it provide a sensitivity tool? So, for instance, you could have calibrated one way at the beginning of the academic year, and through analysis of the reporting that's available, you may decide to tweak things one way or the other. Is it that sensitive as well?
Yeah, I mean, with flexibility comes all of these other discussions, like what if I change my mind? What if the policies change? What if things change along the way? Definitely, we support that. It's not a straightforward kind of functionality that you just go back, touch a button, and then we do all of the rest. It requires a bit more work and more time to go back to those that have happened. But if an institution needs such things and changes their mind along the way, that's why we are here.
So let's dive a little bit into the kind of reporting and analysis that the Inspera tool has. What is it? Can you describe it for us, first of all? And then what is provided to educators to help them really address the instances of plagiarism? So I think there's two parts to that question, but they're connected.
Yep. Definitely. And actually, there are different layers of analytics, as I mentioned. So we are working with risk factors, and how we are presenting that is a three main classifications, which is high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So we are more or less bucketing documents into three main buckets, which means like high risk and medium risk definitely need the attention of the educator. The high risk, it needs more attention, but the low risks, you don't need to look that much into that document in terms of academic integrity, but you will definitely need to evaluate it, to grade it, to kind of provide feedback, but not spend too much time in terms of findings that we presented, because those are very, they don't pose any big potential problem according to our algorithm. But in the medium risk, we are not very sure. We have found some, similarities or some potential academic misconduct, but it's not very conclusive. So you have to kind of go and look back to it. And the high risk is that we are quite confident that there are some problems with this document, and you need to look at this. So all of these documents, when they are checked, then we create like a higher level of analytics. Like we provide the educator with information like the averages of the similarity score, the averages of translation matching scores for an assignment level. And they can compare with different assignments on how this kind of reports are coming in and what are the levels of potential academic misconduct between even assignments or between even courses.
I think an important piece, and we touched on it in the last episode a little bit, is that it's about the data for sure. It's about interpreting the data, but it's also about a person making a judgment call, utilizing that data as a standard potentially, or as at least an indicator, right? What do you think the best outcome of that that whole picture looks like?
I mean, we always recommend that you don't take a decision based on our output. Like the output that we generate is just a starting point. It's just filtering things of what you need to look at and what you can ignore or you can afford to ignore. So the educator or the human kind of element in this process is crucial. Like they need, because something might be plagiarism, let's say in computer science, when you write something, a report for computer science, and a sentence there might mean it's the whole document is plagiarized. And in some cases might mean that in social sciences, you might have paragraphs or pages that are found similar, but they don't consist, cases for plagiarism, because it's all about the context and it's all about the requirements of an assignment. Because an educator can ask, use the opinion of Paul Krugman, let's say, and then, argue around it on the next pages. And if that happens, like the student has to copy and paste some of his opinions there and has to kind of argue with it. And then in this case, it's very important for the educator to kind of take the decision. But in our part, what we try to do is we try to equip them with the best insights and as detailed information as we can, so they have all of this information in their hands and they can make a more informed decision for the academic integrity or whether those standards are being met by that writing.
And I would imagine that depending on whether it's a homework assignment or it's a low stakes essay question, or it's a high stakes essay question, or a thesis submission, that any of those opportunities give the faculty member, especially with the lower stakes end of that spectrum, the opportunity to help educate students on how plagiarism is being defined, what role they play in it, how sensitive some of that those indicators are, and really begin a larger conversation around how do we move them from potential plagiarism into more originality work, or more original work, I should say.
100%. And I can give you actually a case. Let's say somebody is writing a PhD thesis and they have copied, let's say, one paragraph, which is in a section that's very important, and that comes up as 2% or 1% similarity score. That's very low from a score perspective, but it's very important for the whole document. And it means like that PhD thesis should not be approved and should not move to the next stage. But then it could be another case where, for example, these findings, there is, let's say, 20% similarity score, but these findings are very sporadic. They are very, uncalculated kind of similarities, in a sense of being very similar to something we would say, but it's just, they are not all in the same place. They are just all over the document. And then normally what an educator, what we have taught the industry, which is a big criticism for all of the vendors out there, is that we have taught the educators to laser focus on the similarity score, to laser focus on only one metric. But that metric can be most of the times very misleading. Without going through it, it's very difficult to determine the whether it's plagiarism or not.
Got it. So with the Inspera Originality, with any really originality tool, there's a comprehensive database of sources that most of these particular technologies tap into. Can you share a little bit about how Inspera Originality, what sources they use, and how student data or student submissions are compared against it, and how it differentiates itself from others in the market?
Data is very important to us, but at the same time, we don't want to own something that's not ours. Like, if we didn't work for that, if we didn't write it, or if that's not the right for us to have it, we don't want it. It is the institutional data. So if we look to what we search across initially is the World Wide Web. We have more than 100 billion writings stored or have access to with Inspera Originality. Secondly, are the open access repositories, which is growing in numbers, and now is this trend of everyone writing in open access journals and open access kind of publishing in open access repositories, which I'm in very much favor of, because we need to open access the knowledge across the world so everybody can learn from these kind of intellectual writings that researchers put years, if not months, into kind of writing them. Then it comes to premium content, which we are adding along the way, working with publishers to gain our access into this premium content, so we can even search through the repositories which are not available to the whole public. They are behind a paywall, behind a subscription, and so on. And then the most important one as well is the institutional repositories. So institutional repositories we are very sensitive about. So basically what we do is we help institutions migrate their historical submissions in our system and store them for the purpose of doing similarity checking. But that doesn't mean that we open them to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So we ask institutions, like, what are the access policies that you want to provide us? Like, what are the rights we can use upon your data? Like, do you want us only to serve you with this data and do similarity checks only for your institution with this data? Or do you want us to open for everyone, or anything in between? Like, we enable all of these different nuances in terms of access into institutional repositories. But that decision is not ours to take. We try to inform institutions what's a good practice, what would help them, and what would help the world. But at the end of the day, we fully respect whatever an institution decides. And if they even say, like, I want it only for ourselves, we'll only provide that for that institution. And then even along the way, like, let's say a student wants to delete something, they can delete immediately the content from our repositories. They can delete the report. They can delete everything around that check on using our platform. They don't have to communicate with us. But when an institution wants to, let's say, delete a larger batch of documents that they don't want to use anymore, or they want to get out of our system, we support all of these kind of workflows for them. We provide back the data, we delete it from our system, because at the end of the day, we are here to serve them, and we are here to make them feel safe using our tool, because we believe we have a very good engine that provides very good kind of analysis, and we just don't want them to be locked in with us just because they have the data. We want them to be locked in with us because they enjoy the experience, they enjoy the software, and that's the goal.
I love that. I love that the institution is in control, right? They're in control of how the Inspera Originality is set up, what the levers that they can pull to determine any sort of originality scores, and that they have control over their database. Super important on, I think, all levels. And then I don't think we could complete our conversation here without touching on Inspera Originality's position and the capabilities with regards to AI detection. It's such a hot topic that I think people will get to the end of this podcast and be like, "Ooh, you didn't cover it, so we're just going to cover it and we're good to go." So, tell us a little bit about how Inspera Originality addresses the whole world of AI today.
Yeah, so this is the cherry on the cake. For people listening, they should stay till the end to get an answer on this. So yeah, definitely. Thank you, Samantha, on that. So basically, like, we were the first in the market to launch an AI detection tool, which meant, like, we were able to kind of very fastly innovate in this industry and launch something in the market that would address the need for evaluating whether a document has been written by a large language model or was written by a human. So basically, our tool is an AI prediction tool, which means it tries to predict whether it was written by an AI or by a human. It's not a detection system by far. Like, it's completely different from similarity checking, because in similarity checking, we provide arguments, we provide sources, we provide facts of why we classify that as a similarity instance. In AI, it's more of a black box. So basically, text comes in and comes out with a score. And then it tells us, like, what are the sentences the model classified as AI, And based on that, we understand what is the overall level of the document being written by an AI model. But this is very primitive, I should admit. And I don't think, that this is the approach that we should take for in terms of long term. But basically, this is where the technology is right now. So where the technology advancements are right now is just being able to predict the probability of that being AI or being human. And our stance and our positioning in this is to actually work as much as possible with what looks as human content. So we are not trying very hard on detecting AI written text, but we are taking a completely different approach. We are looking what are the patterns or what are the ways that the human text is very random and very different, and in that way we can understand from that high randomness and high variety of writings within a text that actually is human. And for example, at this point, we have achieved to have a 0.68 false positive rate and an overall accuracy of 85%, which is very remarkable in my view. We want to work harder and try to kind of bring a solution that will make educators feel safe about their decision. The institutions are feeling safer about their decision. And most importantly, even the students are well aware what consists AI writing and what consists human writing. And in this way, they can even improve their writing too. Like they can improve the way not to kind of sound completely as an AI constantly. Like we need to differentiate as humans how we write. We should not go down the path of just, if ChatGPT is writing a nice statement, is writing a nice paragraph. Yes, it's doing that because it's absorbing billions and trillions of data. But I still believe that humans can do we do a much better job than ChatGPT. It's just we need to put more work into the writing, and we need to kind of get engaged more with the writing. It's not a magic wand that will solve all of the problems. We just need to kind of look at it as an additional insight and an additional kind of metric that helps us better evaluate the overall originality level of a document.
No, you're so right. I mean, it's early on. We don't have all the indicators. The indicators are still emerging. And I'll go back to kind of a comment that I made earlier. There's the human aspect. The human aspect is unique and it's individual. And we need to, as faculty members and institutions, take in to not only the human that is submitting, but the human that's reviewing. And together, right, knowing your student, having a prediction analysis created for you that not only looks at that particular instance or perspective, but looks at a more holistic perspective, I think gives people at least the comfort of knowing that there is some analysis to make a good decision on. And we probably won't get it right. We probably won't get it right for a while, right? Because it's just changing too quickly. This has been a fantastic conversation, so thank you. My assumption is that institutions and faculty will find this episode especially interesting as they navigate teaching students about submitting original work and upholding their academic standards. So thank you so much, Besart. I really appreciate that you came and joined our conversation today. And I'm interested in seeing what Inspera Originality is going to do over time here and what it can offer within the realm of educational technology. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Samantha. And we'll be here for quite a long time, and we'll be, bringing some very interesting solutions for the educators. And yeah, thank you for all this very productive discussion.
Inspera has over 20 years of experience in the digital assessment solution space, providing institutions with a platform that supports the entire examination cycle. And it revolutionizes the exam experience while providing an easy-to-use interface, allowing students to demonstrate their understanding of a course's subject matter, which ultimately fuels the digital learning process. The views expressed by the participants in this podcast are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Inspera. Inspera disclaims any responsibility or liability for any statements made in the podcast by the participants.